Hi all, so it's me again. I've come back with my latest thinking about the world of Model Y, Tesla and our direction of travel. We have found, with sort of falling in love with this vehicle, its utter sort of performance, simplicity, reliability, everything, we haven't been using that. I do more mileage on the bike. That hasn't been used now for well over a month. This is the workhorse, and of course that's the other toy. At some point, this sort of crazy situation of not using the sports car, or rarely using it. We will obviously use it from time to time, but rarely using it, and the fact that this, you know, when you're minded to, is faster, is what do I do to the motorbikes? Are a fact. I do more miles on the motorbikes than any other vehicle myself. I did 150 miles on that yesterday. On the weekend, my wife and I went out on it and we did 120 miles. So we do more miles on that than anything else, and that includes sort of business and visiting and one thing or another. If I go to family in London, I use the bike, not the car. Many reasons. I come alive on the bike, and you get away with things like free parking and one thing or another. But at some point, because the Land Rover is frighteningly expensive, I mean, really is eye-watering expensive on road fund license and things. The government are really quite rightly punishing these now because they're not environmentally great. And even though it's only 15 years old, it's 2007. It's not that old really as Land Rovers go. It is a thought in my mind as to what do I do next in terms of my car. This is my wife's car. She uses it a lot. And I really ideally could do with putting these two vehicles into one. And I've been therefore looking and researching. We do have a Cybertruck on order. We had that on order, you know, like over 2 years ago when it first was announced with Elon. But that looks like it's a way off. Plus, I think we're number 600,000 in the order queue. So I've been watching and researching and looking, you know, will the Rivian come around at any time soon in the UK? Don't think so. There's the Ford F-150 in America. Does that mean Ford in the UK will bring out an EV version of the Ranger? There's no sign of that, because really I could do with a sort of workhorse vehicle combined with an EV, rather than we don't need two SUV type vehicles. And because of my motorbike riding, I probably, I don't really need a sports car to replace. I need a workhorse vehicle. If I'm going to go down from two vehicles to one vehicle, I need a workhorse. Therefore, it's sort of effectively a replacement for the Land Rover, you know, being able to tow and everything else. So I've been looking at that, and there really is nothing on the horizon right now. But I've been considering it. I watched Ryan Shaw's video the other day of the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and that brings to me this subject. I watched that video, and I urge you all to watch Ryan Shaw's video on the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the new one, because it does look a really interesting car. You know, competition for Tesla is very healthy. The whole EV marketplace growing and expanding is very healthy, and we should all embrace it. You know, and accept the fact that Tesla is healthy for Tesla, have competition, and I know Elon encourages that. But I watched that, and it brought me to thinking a bit like, you know, I'm recording this on an Apple iPhone. I don't know whether this will focus in very well. I've got the Apple Watch, iPad, you know, I use MacBooks and one thing and another. Why am I sort of fully Apple? Is it because I'm a die-hard Apple-ist? No, it's just the world is so complicated enough. The world is complicated enough. The world is complex enough for me to have a combination of sort of Android devices and Apple devices, it's just another level of complexity I could do without. So for example, I've recently moved from a BMW bike, the big bike here, to this Honda, and oh, nightmare. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this Honda. Is a beautiful bike. I mean, I've got it, I love it, but all of the interfaces and the differences and the different nuances between the Honda systems, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all of that, to get your head around it, moving from BMW, it's just a pain. It's just a pain. It's just a hassle, getting everything to work with your headset, on, you know, your helmet and one thing. It's just a hassle. So the reason I stick with Apple devices, Apple Watch, iPhone, iPad, MacBook, is you're in their ecosystem and you get used to their ecosystem, and it's one less complexity you need to get your head around. Watching Ryan Shaw's video of the Hyundai Ioniq 5 brought me to realise that something that should be logical, straightforward for Hyundai to move into. Right, this is part 2 of the same video because there was a builder next door making lots of noise and I didn't want to spoil the latter part with that. So I'm now in the car just in case that noise starts up again. So the point I was going to get to is that when you watch the Ryan Shaw Hyundai Ioniq 5 video and all of his reflections on that vehicle, I just groaned at the thought of moving out of the Tesla sphere that you get used to, a bit like the Apple ecosystem. You get used to it, therefore it's easier to have an Apple iPad in addition to your Apple iPhone and one thing another, or a MacBook, because they all link together, they tie in together. That's why lazily we got the Tesla charger, and we'll probably, you know, if we get a Powerwall, it'll be a Tesla Powerwall rather than something else. Therefore, I think where Elon's part of his success will come from is the average person will find it easier to have a second vehicle as a Tesla rather than another brand, because when you watch Ryan Shaw's video and you sort of think, can I be bothered with all of those annoyances of the Hyundai, or whether it be any other brand? And forget Hyundai, it's just an example. It could be the same with Rivian, it could be the same if you bought a Ford Ranger when it comes out as electric, or you know, F-150. You know, they, in the same way as Apple's ecosystem, I think for me, watching that made me come to the conclusion, am I better off waiting for the Cybertruck, however long that is, and just sticking with you know, that workhorse there and just waiting, rather than going off? Because frankly, if there was an EV, and I'm not talking about that Chinese EV pickup which got coil springs at the back and one the other, or it's only rear wheel drive, you know, ignoring those obscure products that are available in the market, I'm probably better off waiting than struggling like I found that frustrating to get used to. You have to obviously get used to it. You know, it's a different motorbike than what I had before, but it was a pain. But with cars, with my wife and I switching between, because, you know, we do, theoretically, we drive that. Florrie, my wife, occasionally drives that. Switching between different vehicles, and in today's sort of high complex world, with getting your head around all the differences with EVs, etc., and their idiosyncrasies and the different manufacturers, I think more and more movement, because this is an iPhone on wheels, isn't it? I mean, this really is. It's just going to be easier to stay with the same brand, and that is a powerful aspect, in the same way as the you'll find a lot of Apple customers stay with Apple, or indeed you know, Android, you know, Samsung Android phone users will use Android tablets, I imagine. It's the same sort of thing. It's not all just about Apple or Tesla. I think if you're into BMWs, you'll have a BMW electric car, and then if you get another one, would you want to struggle with all the differences of a different brand? I think not. So that's my point here, and that's something that was brought very strongly to light when Ryan Shaw takes you through the Hyundai, and therefore I urge you to watch that. Thank you.